Listen, Stone Cold's in the main event. Can't argue that. It's a
Right.
home run every time. It works every time. Vince McMahon, my God, the best sort of freaking Frank Abbott and Costello duo ever is Vince and Austin. But a handicapped ladder match and then the rope moves the briefcase. Is this overbooked a little? Is this a little too cute?
A little too cute, Conrad, in my opinion. Looking for something new, something fresh, something that would freshen up their long storied rivalry. It was you got to add some new elements. Now the question is, were those the right elements to add? I could debate the point that it was not the right elements to add because it was hard to pull off, and you needed experienced guys in there. And and all due respect to Vince, who was the top heel in the Attitude Era, uh, it was hard to accomplish that with a non-experienced wrestler. As smart as Vince is and was, it missed the mark. It missed the mark. It was the wrong stipulations, I think, at the end of the day. But it did add a different element to the process, and it kept the belt off of Austin in a controversial fashion, which I think was the object of that thing to start with.
Let's talk a little bit about the King of the Ring. Do you feel like by this point, 1999, this thing had run its course?
No, I don't think so. It had been around a while, but I don't think it had run its course, Connie. I think it's still going to be a matter of who's in it, who's wrestling who, and how they perform. So no, I don't think it was. I don't think that ship has sailed whatsoever.
It's interesting, they only did it through 02, then they shelve it for a bit. They bring it back in 2015, but for them to go through the tournament and it not really have any stakes, and then there's not even any real pomp or circumstance when someone wins, and it's not the main event. Not that I'm not saying it should be, but it just feels secondary. Let's do some questions here. The question everybody wants to know because it was never officially explained or paid off on television. Who do you think in storyline was supposed to be the one raising and lowering the briefcase backstage?
Well, a heel. Which heel? Hell, I don't know. Whoever was next up for Austin, I guess. But a heel, maybe Triple H. I'm not sure, but something like that. A heel that Austin could engage physically sooner than later.
Nozamba Sub asked this question for us over on YouTube. You can ask your questions on our YouTube, by the way. It's grillingjr.com. If you haven't already, hit it up. It's your home for all things Jim Ross. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell at grillingjr.com. It's written here, with Undertaker being the world champion and in a dominant faction as well at the time, why was it thought best that he would always win by cheating during this run? Even as a heel, it seems kind of off for the Undertaker to be a cowardly champion. What do you make of that? The idea that he didn't have to be a chicken shit heel.
I never positioned Taker as a cowardly champion. I positioned him as a smart veteran who knew all the shortcuts and had he knew what he wanted to do. He was willing to win at any cost and not to give a damn about his critics or the fans or whatever. He was a heel in that regard. He's going to cheat to win or cheat to maintain at every turn in the road. So that didn't really bother me. It was typical heel stuff. It's just because we had not seen Undertaker in a strong heel persona that it was a little hard sometimes to get past that and settle into the moment of what Taker was portraying at that point in time. It was a unique feel, no doubt about that. And he was never a typical heel. He didn't pull hair and deny it, things like that. He just didn't. And I'm not knocking him for that whatsoever. I mean, he knew what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. It's pretty simple. So I had a good. I liked that gimmick, quite frankly. I thought it freshened up his gimmick, his persona, and made him certainly understandable. It wasn't the macabre or the black magic or whatever. It was a little different presentation. And I thought for Taker at his tenure and how long he had been around and how long he had been working and who all he had worked with, I thought it was timely.
Easy Cleghorn says, first pay-per-view I ever saw. I always wondered why we never got any resolution of who moved the briefcase as Austin climbed the ladder. Was there ever a plan for that to actually lead to something? I know we've sort of addressed that you don't know, but I do want to mention this is late June of 1999. We're really, really close to Vince Russo throwing up his hands and saying, I can't take it anymore. I'm out of here. Do you think Russo's approach to creative was more in the here and now? Like, hey, if we just, because it feels like the greater power, we didn't have a real planned payoff. And then it was like, okay, what if it was Vince? And this thing too, it feels like the day of maybe there's an idea where they say, hey, what if somebody is moving the rope up and down and making it tougher for Austin? So it looks like the fix is in. Those ideas feel like places where we can say later, well, we'll figure that out later. But for now, this worked tonight. And then we never actually get it figured out. I don't know that that was always the case, but it does feel like at certain times with Russo, maybe he's making a choice for tonight and then we'll figure it out. Do you remember hearing that sort of thinking?
Yeah, or he was waiting for Vince to make a final decision. Sometimes that happened where Russo would give Vince a couple of options that he had in his head, and all of a sudden, Vince has got to make a call. And sometimes he wasn't prepared to make that call, like in this situation that we're talking about. So, heck, I don't know, man. I just think sometimes we got so far, we're moving so fast that we're leaving needed details behind, and that's never good.
Let's talk a little bit about the next question here from Angeline. Considering guys like Kane, Big Show, and Ken Shamrock were in the tournament, Billy Gunn versus X-Pac seemed like a weak pairing for the final match. Are there any plans at some point prior to the event to have different competitors in that final match? This feels like, to me, it's all about story, Jim. Like, it's less about who is supposed to be the king of the ring and more about the story of, Billy Gunn having to work through the ashes of DX. What say you?
I can see that. I think you make a viable point. But yeah, it was new players are getting used, and I think the end result of that, or the object of that, Conrad, was that we're looking for somebody to break through and become that quote unquote overnight sensation, and get over, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you want a guy to get over and you set the table for him, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work. Fans were not ready for it. And I think in this case, getting past that stigma of main card positioning hurt Billy and X-Pac. So, but as far as if you want a match, a strong match, I mean, they're going to give you a good match. But I don't know that they're just, as far as the public was concerned, that the public was ready for Billy Gunn and or X-Pac on top.